from today on, we are going to start on the science lesson for standard 10th. We shall start with chapter number 6. For that, you can refer the NCERT textbook, science textbook. Now here, before moving on to the chapter, we shall understand the introduction. That is, we shall move on to some questions wherein which will help us to understand why are we studying this chapter and what are the basic life processes, the processes which are necessary for life. So here, moving on to the introduction part. First of all, answer me this following questions. Suppose, how do you tell that what is alive and what is not? Some may say by looking around that a cow is chewing a cud, or a man is shouting loudly, or a dog is running. Now, what if all of them are sleeping? Yes, the answer will be still they are alive. So how do we tell that even though they are sleeping, they are not performing any kind of activities, how can we tell that they are alive? So some may say that as they are breathing. Yes, of course, that is right, they are breathing and that is visible to us. But for example, if we want to talk about the plants, how can we say that they are alive? We cannot see any kind of movement in them, we cannot see them breathing, but we still say that they are alive. So some may answer that they have green leaves, that is, they are performing some form of activities, that is photosynthesis, which has given them green leaves. So the chlorophyll has given them green leaves and they are performing some sort of activity. And some may say that they grow with the time. So here we can conclude that the growth related movements give us the hint that something is living or something is not. For example, if a chair is there, if a table is there, if a book is there, it's not living because it's not growing, it's not showing some kind of activity or some kind of movement. But the next question that comes to my mind is, suppose there is a plant which is visibly not growing, it is growing with time but it is not visibly growing, or an animal which is not which may not be visibly breathing, but we always conclude that they are living. Barabar, we can say that they are living. So using this visible movement is not enough to say that they are surviving or not. That is, if we are seeing this visible movement and we are telling that that is living, so that is not enough. Only the movements which we can see and we can conclude that they are living, no, that is wrong. So there are other form of movement which are invisible to our naked eye. For example, if I can quote you some examples such as the movement of the cell, the movement of the cytoplasm which is present inside the cell, the movement of the molecules from which the cell is made up of. So all such type of movement are not visible to us, but these are the basic movements which are actually producing the visible movements in our body. So therefore these invisible movements are necessary for surviving. And therefore I can take back to something. There is always a controversy on viruses, that is the scientists, some of them that they are concluded to be living, some of them say that they are non-living. So that is the reason is because when they are present outside the host body, they are not alive, they do not perform any kind of activity, they do not perform any kind of movement. So that is why molecular movements are very, very necessary. If these molecular movements are being performed, then and then only the whole of the body is able to perform and the whole of the organism is said to be alive. So now here, as you can see in the diagram over there, wherein it is being shown that the whole of the body is made up of organs. The organs in turn is made up of tissues. The tissues are in turn made up of cells, and the cells are made up of basic molecules that is inside the organism, living organism. These molecules are termed to be as biomolecules. The molecules which are present inside the living body termed to be as the biomolecules. That is, bio means living and molecules. So biomolecules together forms cell. The cell together forms tissues. The tissues together form organs. The organs together form the organ system, and the organ system together forms the whole of the body. Now suppose, say in an industry there are different departments, in a factory there are different departments. Now if one of the department do not perform well, suppose say there is an HR department, there is a finance department, there is an advertisement department. If one of the department doesn't, production department, if any one of the department doesn't perform well, then the whole of the factory is liable to collapse. Yes, and the same is the problem with our body. The same is the thing that goes with our body or any of the living organisms in the body. That is, if the molecules do not perform, if the molecules are not repaired, if the molecules are not maintained timely, then the cells will not be able to perform. If the cells will not be able to perform, then the whole of the tissue may get damaged. If the tissue gets damaged, then the organ is liable to get damaged. If the organ gets damaged, the system may also get damaged, and the whole of the body may face some or the other form of problems. And therefore, if we trace back, we have, there should be always the movement of the molecules, that is repairing and maintenance of these molecules is necessary. So therefore, if now, what are these maintenance processes which helps the molecules to get repaired time to time? So this maintenance processes which keeps on repairing the molecules, which keeps on moving the molecules around inside our body, are nothing but the life processes. So now tell me an answer, that is this life processes necessary inside our body? So the answer for this question is yes, they are necessary. That is, we lead to the next question, that is, what are life processes? The maintenance function of the living organism must go on even when they are not doing anything in particular. Yes, if we are sleeping, if we are just sitting, if we are just sitting ideally, we are not doing anything, then too the molecules have to do their work, barabar, in order to keep our body moving, in order to keep our body alive. So we lead to the next thing, what is the definition for life processes? So the basic functions, all the basic functions that are performed by the living organism to maintain their life on the earth, in order to exist, in order to sustain on the surface of the earth, we require some form of processes inside our body, and those processes, the basic processes inside our body, the maintenance job inside our body, that is termed to be as the life processes. Barabar? So the processes which together performs the maintenance job in order to sustain the life is termed to be as life processes. Now here, tell me another answer. For maintenance, we require energy. Yes or no? Yes, that is, if this maintenance is continuously taking place inside our body, whether we are sleeping, whether we are running, whether we are sitting, or whatsoever, whensoever the maintenance process is taking place inside our body, this life processes are taking place inside our body, it always requires energy. So the next question which immediately strikes my mind, so where does this energy comes from? So all of you know the answer, that is the energy for doing the basic activities inside our body, for moving the molecules around inside our body, so that the cells can perform, the body can perform. So we reach to a conclusion that we need to have food, we need to have the source of nutrition, we need to have the source of energy. So that is what the source of energy is, nothing but the food. Now here, so the basic life process that everyone needs, so the very first one is nutrition. Now this nutrition is once taken inside our body, it has to be broken down. Of course, a chapati cannot move to the whole of the body. It has to be broken down into several smaller and smaller particles, so that it reaches to every single cell inside our body for the maintenance process. So now the breaking down of the food material inside our body it does takes place with the help of various kind of reactions inside our body. and the reactions, the basic reactions, the most basic reactions which keeps on taking place continuously inside our body in order to break down the food is nothing but the oxidation and the reduction reaction, which can be together termed to be as the redox reactions. Now this oxidizing and reducing reactions, wherein if we talk about oxidation, that is nothing but addition of oxygen to a given compound, and reduction, that is addition of hydrogen to a given element or a compound, and so on, which helps in processing a particular reaction. So the basic reaction is oxidizing reducing reactions, wherein we lead to the next important life process inside of our body, that is nothing but respiration. So what is respiration? It is nothing but the breaking down of the food. For what? In order to release energy. So that we lead to the next important life process, that is respiration. That is, once we have taken the food has to be broken down. The food gets broken down with the help of the oxygen inside some organisms, and some of the organism doesn't use oxygen, and we will look into it in the later part of the chapter. So the next process is respiration. Now, if we talk about, suppose, say, a single cell organism such as amoeba, paramecium, and so on, and so many other organisms which are single cell organism. So for them, it is very easy process in order to take the oxygen from environment, in order to take the food from the environment, because they have single cell, and therefore they can take in all the materials from outside to inside, and also throw back the materials from inside to outside by a very simple process which is termed to be as diffusion. As we all know, diffusion is nothing but the movement of the material from the region of higher concentration to the region of lower concentration. That is what happens, suppose if there is an amoeba, wherein the oxygen content inside the body of the amoeba is less, and therefore it will extract the oxygen from the environment wherein the oxygen content is more, and therefore from the surface of the single cell of their body, they will get the oxygen. But what about us? What about all the other form of multicellular organism which are made up of millions and trillions of cells? Now, for them, all this is not so easy, and it is a complex phenomenon. So many cells are needed in order to take in oxygen, in order to take in food, yes, and therefore they are complex. They have different tissues which does the function of taking in the oxygen, taking in the food, breaking down the food, and so on. Now, in this multicellular organism, diffusion is not going to work. That suppose if there is so much of glucose inside the liver, it is going to go into the other parts of the body only with the help of diffusion. No. Therefore, here comes in picture another life process, a very important life process, that is transportation, or which can also be termed to be as circulation, wherein transportation or circulation, now what does this do? So they move the materials from one part of the body to the other part of the body in the multicellular organism. Now here, all of us also know that once the nutrition, that is the food is being taken, the food is being broken down by the process of respiration, along with the help of the process of digestion, then the digested food material is absorbed by the body, it is being transported to the various parts of the body. Now during this process always some kind of byproducts are generated, and we all know that the byproducts are useless. The byproducts which are generated inside our body are useless, and therefore has to be removed timely from the body, or may harm the cells of our body. They may harm our body, and therefore they have to be removed by a process, as we all know, that is excretion. So here in this chapter, we are going to deal with some of the important life processes, that such as nutrition, respiration, transportation or circulation, and excretion, wherein we will first of all start with nothing but the topic of nutrition. So hopefully till here you have understood that what is life processes. So first of all, life processes is nothing but all the processes taking place inside of a body that are essential for survival, that are essential for the movement of the molecule inside of a body, so that we can sustain, so that our cells get repaired, maintained time to time, and our body can perform. So what are the basic life processes? So we can tell nutrition, that is taking in on food; respiration, that is breaking down of the food either with the help of oxygen or without the use of oxygen, then in order to release the energy. Now here, moving on to the next one, once the food has been broken down, that is, it has been digested, it has been absorbed, it has to move to the various parts of the body, and it leads to the next one, that is circulation or transportation. And the last one, during the whole process, always, as there are various chemical reaction taking place inside our body, so therefore always some or the other a form of waste byproduct has been created, which is removed out of our body by the process termed to be as excretion. And therefore, hopefully you have understood till now. We shall move on to the first topic, that is nutrition, or the first important life process, that is nutrition. Here you can see various forms of life processes such as nutrition, respiration, digestion, circulation, excretion, reproduction, control and coordination, growth, movement, and so on, which we are going to deal in the next part of the next chapter itself. But in this chapter we will be dealing with nutrition, respiration, digestion, circulation, and excretion. So moving on to the very first one, that is nutrition. So what all topic we are going to conduct in nutrition is: what is nutrition, what are the various modes of nutrition, what are the types of autotrophic nutrition, and so on. So moving on to the very first one, that is, how will you define nutrition? So nutrition is the process of, it is a process. What it is? It is a process. Which kind of process? Of intaking, that is taking inside of nutrients, such as the nutrients, as you all know, includes either carbohydrates or fats or proteins or minerals or vitamins or water. Now, by an organism, as well as the utilization of this nutrients by the organism, that is, what does this means to say? That is, it is a process wherein we take in the food inside our body, and this food has not to be just taken inside our body, but it has to be digested, it has to be utilized, it has to be used. That is, it has been broken down, and it releases the energy, and then energy is being utilized, and this process is termed to be as nutrition. So it is the process of intake of the food and breaking down of it and utilization of it, that is utilization of the energy which is being released by the process of nutrition. Now here, all the activities that we do requires energy, and this energy is being supplied to us with the help of nutrients. The nutrients in turn can be also termed to be as food. Now the food is required by our body to grow, to develop, to form proteins, and so on. Proteins are also formed inside our body. We also take in the proteins from food material, but they are also constructed inside our body, that we will be dealing in the next part. Now here, so the food is required to grow, to develop, to form proteins. Now, the food in turn is also said to be as nutrients. So, this nutrients could be of two types. The nutrients are what? They are the materials which provide us nutrition in order to generate the energy. They are termed to be as nutrients. Nutrition is a process, and whatsoever we take in inside our body, the food that we take in inside our body is termed to be as nutrients. Yes, so need not to get confused. That is, nutrition is the process of taking in the food and to utilize it, and nutrients are the food material that we are taking inside our body. So here, this nutrients could be of two type. It could be macronutrients or it could be micronutrients. So macronutrients such as proteins, carbohydrate, lipids, they come inside the category of macronutrients. And if we talk about the micronutrients, they are the minerals and the vitamins. Now here, so hopefully you have understood the definition, that is of nutrition and nutrients, and why is the process of nutrition necessary in order to get energy, in order to perform all the basic activities. Now, talking about the next part of this nutrition, that is the mode of nutrition. There, what do you understand by mode of nutrition? Mode means that is the method of obtaining the food, the method by which an organism gets the food. That is termed to be as the mode of nutrition. By which method an organism is getting the food, that is termed to be as mode of nutrition. That is mainly, we have already studied about this now, but mainly they are divided into two categories. That is, there are two types, two mode of nutrition. The very first one is autotrophic mode of nutrition, and the next one is heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Now here we shall first of all move on with the first one, that is autotrophic mode of nutrition. So here the word itself tells us what does this autotrophic mode of nutrition means. Auto, that is self, by self, own, prepared themselves. That is auto, and tropic mean nutrition. So the nutrition or the nutrients which are being prepared by someone's like by themselves. That is not going to the kitchen and cooking the food, rather getting the food itself, preparing the food itself in the raw form. As in, who does the autotrophic mode of nutrition? As we all know, this autotrophic mode of nutrition is being performed by green plants, blue-green algae, that is some form of green bacteria, and so on. The plants which are green in nature can prepare their own food, and some of the blue-green algae or some of the green bacteria. So these were the examples of autotrophs. And yes, the organisms which prepare their own food, which forms their own food, they are termed to be as autotrophs. The organisms which can prepare their own food are termed to be as autotrophs. એટલે જાતે જ પોતાનું ખાવાનું બનાવે. અને autotrophic mode of nutrition, that is the mode of nutrition in which the food is prepared by the own body, કે બોડીના અંદર જ ફૂડ બની જાય છે. બરાબર. Now here, so this green plants, some of the autotrophic bacteria such as the blue-green algae, they all prepare their own food. Can we stand in the sunlight and prepare our own food? No, that is not possible. So this autotrophic organism, how do they prepare their own food? So they prepare their own food by a very important phenomenon, by a very important process which is termed to be as photosynthesis. That is, photo means light and synthesis means production. So here, even though we stand inside the in light and sunlight, we cannot prepare their own food because we lack some of the important components inside our body, and that is what we are going to see in the next part of this lecture. Now here, so hopefully all of you have understood what do you understand by autotrophic nutrition. Autotrophic nutrition is the nutrition, it is a mode of nutrition wherein the organism can prepare their own food inside their body. And who are the examples of the autotrophic nutrition or the autotrophs? Who are said to be autotrophs? The organisms which produces their own food are termed to be as the autotrophs. Now examples of the autotrophs are green plants and some of the autotrophic bacteria. Now they prepare their food with the help of which phenomenon or which process? That is photosynthesis. First of all, we shall understand the difference between the autotrophic nutrition and the heterotrophic nutrition before moving to the process of photosynthesis. So this is the basic difference. Auto, that is self. Hetero, that is dependent on someone. So please tell me, we are autotrophs or heterotrophs? Yes, we obviously prepare our food in the kitchen, but we are not preparing the raw food itself that has been prepared by the plants, and we are dependent on the plants. We are just cooking the plants, and that is what we are. Heterotrophic organism, we are heterotrophs. The animals are heterotrophs, which cannot prepare their own food, which are dependent on the autotrophs for the food. So here, talking about the difference, that is autotrophic nutrition and heterotrophic nutrition, the organisms which make their own food by simple inorganic materials such as CO2, such as water, and so on, and they are termed to be as autotrophs. For example, are the green plants, and by the process termed to be as photosynthesis, for their growth, for their repair, and also for giving to the others. Yes, and the organism which could not prepare their own food and which have to directly or indirectly depend on the autotrophs for their food requirement are termed to be as heterotrophs. Indirectly, as in we also rely on some of the organisms for our food. For example, some of them are some may rely on the meat, beef, and so on. So that is, they are indirectly, but that particular organism, suppose if we talk of the lion is dependent on the deer, and the deer is dependent on the plant. So the deer is directly dependent on the autotrophs, and the lion is dependent on the another heterotroph. So that is, all the organism which are directly or indirectly dependent on the autotrophs are termed to be as heterotrophs, and they do not perform any kind of photosynthetic process. Now autotrophs use CO2, water, for preparing the food, and the heterotrophs are directly or indirectly dependent on the autotrophs. Yes, so if there was no grass, no plants, then the deer could not survive. If the deer could not survive, the lion could not survive. So that is, the lion is also indirectly dependent on the plant for its survival. Yes, then talking of the next one, that is chlorophyll and sunlight is essential for autotrophs, but chlorophyll as well as sunlight are not required by heterotroph for preparation of the food. Barabar? And the autotrophs requires chlorophyll as well as sunlight. Now here, hopefully you have understood the difference between autotroph and the heterotroph, but for now we shall revise the topics, as in what do you understand by life process. So you may say that the maintenance job or the processes which together performs the maintenance function inside our body are termed to be as life process. Or you may say all the process taking place inside our body which helps us to survive, which are essential for surviving, are termed to be as life processes. So the next question will be, what are the basic forms of life process? So you will tell me that nutrition, respiration, transportation or circulation, excretion, reproduction, growth, all of them are very important life processes. And the next question could be, what are outside raw materials which are used for energy by organisms? So outside raw materials could be CO2, H2O, and so on. And the next question which arises will be, what do you understand by nutrition? So the answer will be, the process by which the organisms takes food and utilizes it is termed to be as nutrition. And the food, the nutrients, the food that we take in are termed to be as nutrients. And what are the various mode of nutrition? That is autotrophic nutrition and heterotrophic nutrition. And what is the difference between autotrophic and heterotrophic nutrition? And this is all for now. And for the next understanding, for the understanding of the process of photosynthesis, we will move on to the part